So you've met someone new, and now your brain is going into overdrive. Who are they? Do they know you? What do they think about you? Can you trust them? So then you start to think, what do I do next? Maybe I just stand here and listen to what they're talking about. Maybe I should ask them a question and get to know them. Or I could grab my phone and do a little bit of stalking. Just a little bit. What's really interesting here is that this isn't just social curiosity, it's a process, a strategy. And communication scholars even have a name for it. And that's what this episode is all about. Today on Communication Campus, we are going to dive into uncertainty reduction theory. Let's dive in. So welcome back to Communication Campus. I am your host, Dr. Malynnda Stewart, and today we are diving into uncertainty reduction theory, also known as URT. And this was developed in the 1970s by Dr. Charles Berger and colleagues. This theory helps us understand what we do and why we do it when we are navigating new relationships and, social ambiguity. So it's rooted in this idea that uncertainty makes us uncomfortable. And I don't know about you, but I'm captain of the uncertainty makes me uncomfortable club, especially when we are talking about initial interactions. Now, Berger proposed that communication exists largely to help us reduce uncertainty between strangers. But in this theory, he makes a number of assumptions that we have to take into consideration. Key assumption number one is that when we meet someone new, we are motivated to reduce that uncertainty. If you yourself are not someone who feels the need to get to know that person better, then this theory might not make a whole lot of sense to you. The theory also assumes that we seek predictability, that we want to make behaviors more understandable so that we can predict what that person might do. And third, we assume that communication is our main tool for making the unfamiliar more familiar. So whether it's a first date, a first class, or a first impression, uncertainty, according to this theory, drives how we talk, what we'll ask, and what we observe. Now, to understand this theory a little bit more, we need to understand two types of uncertainty and the strategies that we use to get rid of that uncertainty. Now, the types of uncertainty first begin with our cognitive. And these are the things that we're thinking about in terms of what type of person is this? What do they value? In other words, what's important to them? And then we also start thinking about behavioral uncertainty. What's appropriate here? What am I supposed to do? What do I do with my hands? Should I make this joke? Should I stay quiet? Should I speak up? Should I look away? All of these feelings and questions that we have are because we are feeling uncertain. Now, to make that uncertainty go away, to make it feel more familiar, we have three different strategies. The first is the passive strategy. You just observe and wait and watch from across the room, checking to see how someone acts within that group. And what are they doing that's getting rewarded? And what are they doing that seems to be disliked by the other people? And then you would start mirroring the things that seem to be approved. Next, we have active. And this is when you seek out information indirectly. You start by asking people about that group, about that individual. You can start checking LinkedIn, start looking at things on the computer, but you're going to go around about, but you're being active, you're doing something. And then lastly, we have interactive. And interactive is when you go straight to the source. You start asking questions, you start having a conversation. We use these 3 strategies every single day. And most of the time, we don't even realize it. For example, if you were assigned a group project, you might passively just kind of listen to see how others in the group are speaking. You might whisper to a neighbor using that active strategy, "Hey, what do you know about that individual?" Or you can engage in the interactive side where you say, "Hey, tell me more about you. What's your major? Why'd you take this class?" All 3 offer you different options to achieve the same goal. Now, Berger outlined what he calls 8 axioms or statements about how uncertainty connects to the other aspects of communication. Now, I'm going to trust that you're going to read in your book about all 8, but I'm going to bring up just 3 for you right now. The first axiom is that verbal communication increases and uncertainty decreases. So the more we're actively interactive in our communication with those individuals, our levels of uncertainty are going to decrease. Axiom number 3 states that high uncertainty leads to increased information seeking behavior. So the more I feel uncomfortable about something, the more likely I'm going to start trying to seek out information to find out what's going on here. And axiom 7 it says that more uncertainty equals less liking. If I have real high uncertainty around an individual, I'm probably far less likely to like them. As simple as they sound, these axioms form the foundation for many interpersonal studies, but they also have application in our modern everyday world. Take, for example, in dating and social media. Apps like Bumble or Hinge are built on uncertainty reduction theory assumptions. For example, the more information, the more uncertainty. This is why we have bios and photos and interests, all created from the get-go to help us reduce ambiguity. And within the study of intercultural communication, we now know that uncertainty is especially high across cultures where different norms are experienced. And as a result, URT has even been adapted into intercultural adaptation theory for that very same reason. Now, all of these applications and all of these ways of looking at things doesn't mean that it doesn't go without any critiques. Some scholars say that this theory assumes uncertainty is always uncomfortable. But sometimes that mystery can also attract people. It also assumes that we are not really fully considering the emotional or relational context of that interaction. That might have a big part in whether or not we're feeling comfortable or not. the final critique here is that it can be overly predictive or linear because real relationships are quite messy. I also want to add that a lot of what's related in this chapter comes from a very neurotypical framework. If we look at people that are neurodivergent, a lot of this might not really work. So, this is one of those theories that I think we really need to continue to expand on and take another look at now through the lens of neurodiversity. Because we now know a lot more about how individuals who are, for example, autistic might be facing uncertainty in a completely different way. So, what have we learned? Well, we've learned that uncertainty drives communication, especially early on. And that while reducing it using strategies like observation or questioning, we also want to make sure that we are doing things directly and having more an interactive conversation. But not all uncertainty is bad, and not all of it gets resolved. Next time on Communication Campus, we're going to be exploring the social information processing theory, looking at how information and media impacts our relationships. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next class. In the meantime, keep communicating.